Hi everybody, welcome back. We've been getting quite a few questions about how to do pole work and groundwork and how to incorporate the two. So what I thought we'd do today is just take you through some of the little exercises that we do. Now what I want you to bear in mind is that all the horses that we're using are different and they need different exercises, and I also want you to bear in mind that, you know, it's an individual thing and you should really consult your vet or physio before starting any of these exercises in case it's not right for you. But I just thought it might be helpful, a few hints and tips on how we do things here with our horses. So today I've got Jaguar here, and I've used a couple of the other horses as well just to show you some simple exercises that you can do to really improve your horse's suppleness, balance, stability, make it make him more aware of where he's putting his feet, so that proprioception. I ideally try to do these exercises a couple of times a week if I can, but of course again that's up to the individual. You have to do what you know you can fit in, but it is very good for them. And if you're having a day that maybe it's a bit windy or it's not the nicest of weather, actually you can still do quite a lot with them in hand and using the poles. So it's quite a good way of kind of getting the horse exercised, but perhaps without having to ride. So Jaguar needs to do some pole work, and I like to start all my pole work on the ground, even though he may have done it before, but then he hasn't got to balance me or the rider. He's just got to think about himself. And so what I like to do is just walk through the poles in a line to start with, and just on the floor, just so that he gets a bit used to walking through. And even though you're just walking through the poles on the floor, that's making him very aware of where he's putting his feet, so that proprioception, where he's putting his feet and how he's moving. He needs to learn to stretch out, engage his core a little bit more, so it will help with core stability, it will help with the flexibility in his back, and it will help with his even push with his hind legs behind. So it's really important to get your horse to walk through these poles on both reins, but also get them used to you being the other side of them, so that you make them more even. And you can clearly see, because I haven't done this with this particular horse, you can clearly see him pushing with his right shoulder into me. See here how he's pushing? And actually I do want to show you that, because that is something that can happen. So I'm going to go a little bit more in front of him to try and keep him a bit straighter. And see, you need him to take a better shape, so he's a bit more of a banana shape around your, effectively what would be your inside leg. And try and keep him straight, so you can see him absolutely, look, falling through this right shoulder. So we need to work on the straightness here. Try and focus on staying in that middle of that pole, and having him just walk a little bit alongside you but not on top of you. And here he just tends to crowd your space a bit. Just got to get used to you being this side of him. That's a better turn now. Now we try and keep the straightness all the way through. I might just have to just touch his nose just to push him to be a little bit straighter. But that's why the pole work and the groundwork is so important, because that's showing up some of his natural asymmetries, which in a few weeks' time, if we practice this regularly, we won't have this problem coming into the poles. We'll have a straighter horse. So with him for the moment, all I'll do is I'll keep the poles on the floor like this. I won't raise them just yet. But as we get better, say in 2 or 3 days' time when we've done it a few more times, then I'd start to raise these poles just to get him to really flex the joints a little bit more. He needs an awful lot of support from me to make it this way. So what I would ideally do is make sure that I do another set of reps this way, but I don't want to do too much in one day because he's not used to doing it. So I'll just do a few reps one way, so to the left, if we start to the right, then go to the left and then come back to the right, so that we're actually making sure that on the right side we just do one more set of reps, because you can clearly see how he really wants to come through that shoulder. So that's really going to help him improve the straightness. So if you imagine if you're trying to ride that as well, he's then got to balance you as well. So before you even think about sitting on and trying to do these, make sure you can do it on the ground first. So this is Duke. I think everybody knows Duke. He's the famous one that's in all the videos because he's so good. But poor Duke does have laminitis, so I just wanted to show you he can do the raised poles, but I wouldn't trot him through the raised poles because it's a little bit too much concussion. Also the exercise that I've done with Bren, which is on the sort of fan, that turning in a tight circle and going through the poles like this on a spiral is a little bit too much, because it's going to really twist his ankle, if you like, so it's going to not help with his pedal bone, the rotation of his pedal bone. So we really want to try and keep him straight rather than having any tight turns or any concussion from the raised trotting poles. But he can still walk through because it's still good for him, and it's still good for lifting his core and getting him to really be aware of where he's putting his legs. So I ideally want to keep his eye in line with his hip. I want him to stretch his nose out in front of the vertical line and work out how he needs to get through. Try and keep him as straight as possible. So just even as you're lunging him round here, trying to keep the eye in line with the hip, trying to encourage a slightly more active walk. Trying to keep that nice lateral bend, a little bit like he's a banana around your inside leg, and then come to the poles again. And just encourage him to stay in the middle, stay straight, keep pushing his nose a little bit forwards and dropping his head. So this is Darcy, she's a 5-year-old, and we're going to introduce the cavalettis on a circle on the lunge. And quite a good thing with the cavalettis is if she falls in, you can change the way that I've got them. So here you can see that side's lower and the outside's higher. So if she falls in, I can make the inside higher and the outside lower, and vice versa. If she falls the other way, I can just change it round to better help her. This is better because she's starting to drop her head and neck a little bit more now. And that's what we ideally want her to do, is to have her eye in line with her hip and stretch a little bit more for the pole. So if she's doing it with her head too high, then her back is hollow and then she's not engaging her core. And we want her to engage her core and try and stretch a little bit for the pole. Swap her the other way. Good girl. So by putting the poles on a circle, it's also, she's got to concentrate a little bit more. And then she starts to look for the next pole. That's better in her head and neck. Now she's a bit more focused. What I want to show you now is when we go to the raised poles and then we do the trot raised poles, what we're looking for is the horse to land and push with one hind leg. So what we don't want is for the horse to get into here and have to do a half a step with one of the hind legs. We need one hind leg to really push and then get him to the next point. And one hind leg to really push and get him to the next point. It's too wide for me, but the idea is that you're promoting that equal push behind. You don't want the horse to come into here and have to do a little half step with one hind leg and then push, because what you're doing then is encouraging the wrong muscles and the wrong posture. So every horse will be a little bit different and you'll have to have a little play with the spaces. Mine at the moment are at, I'm a size 4 and these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 of my feet apart, and that is quite good for most of the horses, but you may need to change that a little bit. Make sure that you play and make sure that the horse is actually really pushing equally. So the cavalettis are brilliant, and we recently got these Jump for Joy cavalettis, which are so good. They're so useful. It's something that we use on all of the horses. It really promotes like the coordination of the horse, that proprioception, really making the horse very aware of where he's putting his feet. You can have them raised, you can have them on the ground, you can use them in so many different ways. What it does is it really works. The idea of you using the cavalettis is you want your horse to really stretch forwards and out with his neck and to swing more through their back to create a better posture. So the benefit of doing the circle is really because it increases the lateral flexion of the spine, so you get the horse almost like a banana shape round your inside leg, and you want to try not to let the horse get too straight. Also what you need to remember is that you need to make sure that you keep the horse going over one part of the pole. So if it's the red part through the centre, try to do that all the way through, or if you're going larger, stick to the yellow part of the pole all the way through, so you're not sort of making the circle bigger, smaller, you're sticking to one point. You also wouldn't want to do too many circles, so you've got to remember that that's really asking your horse to engage its hind leg, and it will get tired, and even though it doesn't look much, it actually is quite a workout. So you must make sure that you only do a few reps one way and a few reps the other way. So a little bit like when we go to the gym, we want to make sure that we're doing, equal amounts on both sides. We're not overdoing it, we're not doing too many reps, we're introducing things really slowly. We also must make sure that we've warmed up correctly before doing any of these exercises. So the physical benefits of doing pole work is it really improves core strength, it improves top line, it improves the limb activity, it also improves the spinal mobility, their balance, it helps with balance, it helps with straightness, and it helps with that proprioception, which is just a long word for where you're putting your feet and being more aware of it. It encourages your horse and gives him a little bit of confidence in about stepping over things, round things, through things. It's all good, especially for young horses. So the pole work can be done in a variety of ways. You can do it on the lunge line, you can do it in hand, and you can do it ridden. I would say with the ridden, I would do that once the horse is really established and understanding how he needs to move his body through the poles, and when he's really creating a good posture through the poles in hand or on the lunge, then I would start to do the ridden. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps, and if you want to us to answer any questions, leave a comment in the box below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.